did anybody, when did the dividing thing stop in the meeting? You know, the
Partition?
petition, thank you.
Yes,
I know it was between 1954 and 1956 because that's when I was in alternative service. When I came home, it was gone.
How long did they have separate meetings, though, for
Oh.
men and women?
This is Beth, and I barely remember when the women and the men had separate business meetings, when the doors were closed between the women's sections and the men's section. And I can't remember, because the families began sitting together. I think that was right around World War II as well, when the women and the men no longer sat separately. Some families continue that for quite a while, but the majority gradually sat together as family groups.
I grew up, I was a young boy, very young boy, half a mile north of the meeting house. And I remember sometimes walking with my grandfather to meeting. His wife was no longer living, though he was living with us. And my mother had 3 daughters younger than I, and she was busy taking care of them. And so on nice days, I would walk down here. I remember one time sitting with my grandfather near the coal stove. There was a coal stove at each end of the building then. And he never spoke in meeting, he always attended. I was a regular attender. And I remember about halfway through meeting, he would very quietly reach over and get a chunk of coal, put it in the stove, so quietly you could hardly hear it. And one time I remember a business meeting, and we continued in our seat. Men were, at that time, all the men were sitting on one side and women on the other. Some of the women, I think, may have worn a bonnet, and men may have worn hats to meeting. I think I remember during yearly meeting times, some of the Quakers from other meetings, older Quakers, men walked into meeting with their hats on. And they would take their hats off when somebody started to pray. They called it supplication prayer. I was so curious about that door that was between the 2 meetings. And all I remember is that sometimes after some discussion on the men's side or before then, the door would open a little bit. And one of the, I don't know if they were caretaker or how that person was appointed, but it was a person that sat on the lowest seat facing the meeting next to the door that would quietly reach over and take a slip of paper from the other side and pass it back to the clerk. And then there would be business going on, which I don't remember. I don't know if I even understood it. But that was a very curious thing for me, to see that door open and see the message come through, and then there'd be a message returned to the other side.